All right, class, settle in. Every new nation, right at its birth, has to ask itself a really fundamental question. Who are we? Who's in? Who belongs? Today, we're going to dive deep into how India's constitution tackled this head-on with Article 5. This is the article that defined exactly who was a citizen at the very moment the Republic came into being. So, I want you to picture this. It's January 26th, 1950. The brand new Constitution of India clicks into place. And at that precise second, you've got to draw a line in the sand. Who is an Indian citizen and who isn't? You see, this was way more than just some legal paperwork. It was about forging the very identity of this new nation. And that was the job of Article 5. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We'll cover India's starting point for citizenship, then we'll deconstruct the Article 5 rule itself. After that, we'll get into the constitutional fine print. Super important stuff. We'll see how Article 5 has played out in the courts, and wrap up with why it all still matters. Let's get into it. All right, first up, India's citizenship starting point. Now, if there's one thing you take away about Article 5, let it be this. It was a one-time deal, a snapshot. It wasn't designed for the future. Its whole purpose was to establish a clear, definitive baseline of who was a citizen at one very specific moment in time. And that specific moment was, of course, January 26th, 1950. Seriously, think of it like taking a photograph. Article 5 just looked at everyone present in the country on that day and applied a set of rules to figure out, okay, who here is legally an Indian citizen? That's why in legal terms we call it a transitional provision. It's all about managing that transition from one state of being to another. Okay, moving on to Section 2. Now listen up, because this is the meat and potatoes of it all. If you're studying for an exam, get your highlighters out. Article 5 boils down to a pretty straightforward two-part formula. If you can master these two parts, you've basically cracked the code of this article. So here it is, the test itself. Step 1 is the big one, the absolute must-have. You had to establish domicile in India. That's the gateway. It's non-negotiable. Only if you pass that first hurdle do you even get to look at Step 2. And for Step 2, the good news is you only had to meet one of the three conditions. So, what on earth is domicile? Now, this is a key legal concept, so let's be precise. It's not just about where you happen to be living. It's a two-part thing. First, you need physical residence. You actually have to be there. But second, and this is crucial, you need the intention to remain there permanently. That's the mental element. In Latin, which lawyers love, we call it animus manendi. You absolutely need both. And this, right here, is where a lot of students trip up. So let's make it super clear. Domicile is not the same as residence. Look, you can reside anywhere, right? You might live in one city for college, another for a job. Those are residences. But you can only have one domicile. It's your legal, forever home. And for Article 5, that permanent home, that domicile, had to be India. Period. All right, so let's say you've cleared the domicile hurdle. Now you get to Step 2, the conditions. And remember, you just need to tick one of these boxes. See the big or there? So option A, you were born in the territory of India. Simple enough. Option B, one of your parents was born there. Or option C, you were ordinarily resident in India for at least 5 years right before that big day, January 26, 1950. Any one of those three and you are in. Okay, Section 3. We've got the basics down. Now let's get into the fine print. This is what I call the 5-star material. This is the stuff that takes you from a B+ to an A+ answer, because these little details, they change everything. They're the nuances that really define what Article 5 can and can't do. Here's a huge one, and it comes right out of a famous case called Abdul Sattar. When Article 5 says territory of India, what does it actually mean? It means India's borders as they existed on January 26, 1950. It does not mean the old undivided India that included modern-day Pakistan and Bangladesh. This is a super important, subtle point, especially when you compare it to other articles. Vital distinction. And then there's the big but, the giant exception. I want you to think of Article 7 as a trump card or an override switch. Basically, it says that if you migrated to Pakistan after March 1st, 1947, well, then your claim under Article 5 is wiped out. It doesn't matter if you were born in India, it doesn't matter if your parents were. That act of migration to Pakistan, it basically cancels your Article 5 eligibility. So we've got the theory down, right? The rules, the exceptions, but theory is one thing. Let's see how this stuff actually works in the real world. Section 4 is all about taking Article 5 into the courtroom and seeing how the Supreme Court has interpreted it. Because trust me, that's where the law really comes to life. Let's start with a classic case, Izhar Ahmed Khan versus the Union of India.
The facts are pretty straightforward. You have a man who was born in India. So, tick, he seems to qualify under Article 5. But in 1947, he migrates to Pakistan. Later, he comes back and says, hey, I was born here. I should be a citizen. It's a perfect test case. So this put a really sharp question to the court. What happens when Article 5 and Article 7 basically go head-to-head? Does your citizenship by birth, which you get from Article 5, get canceled out by the fact that you migrated to Pakistan, which is covered by Article 7? Which one wins? And the Supreme Court's ruling? It was absolutely decisive. They said you can't read these articles in isolation. You have to read them together. And when you do that, it's clear that Article 7 acts as an exception to Article 5. So if you migrated to Pakistan, that action effectively erases your claim under Article 5. Your birth rate doesn't matter anymore. This is a landmark case, folks. You absolutely have to know this one. Okay, next up, a completely different kind of case, Louis de Rad versus the Union of India. This one really pushes on that idea of residence. So you have a Belgian missionary who lived in India for more than 30 years, a massive chunk of his life. He argues that after all that time, he's effectively become a citizen just by virtue of living there for so long. So the question for the court becomes, well, can you just become a citizen by default? If you live somewhere long enough, does citizenship just sort of happen? Can 3 decades of living in India automatically make you a citizen without any formal application? And the court's answer was a firm no. They made it very clear that becoming a citizen isn't something that just happens automatically. It's a formal legal process. Yes, Article 5, Clause C had that 5-year residence rule, but that was a special one-time offer that expired on January 26, 1950. After that date, just living in India for a long time wasn't enough. You had to go through the proper channels set up by the Citizenship Act. This table is a really great study tool. It lays it all out. Just look at that India definition column. See how for Article 5, it's strictly India as it was in 1950? But for Articles 6 and 8, which dealt with people coming from Pakistan or those of Indian origin abroad, the definition expands to undivided India. This shows how the Constitution was flexible enough to handle the very different, very complex situations created by partition. All right, final section. Let's pull back and ask the big so what question. This article was for a single day in 1950. Why do we even care about it now? Why do law students still have to study it? What's its lasting importance? Here's why it matters. Article 5 was the foundation. It was the starting block. It created the initial group of we, the people of India. But, and this is so important to remember, its job is over. It's a historical artifact. If you want to know how someone becomes a citizen today, you don't look at the Constitution. You look at a totally separate law passed by Parliament, the Citizenship Act of 1955. And there's one more huge legacy. Article 5 helped cement a core principle of India's identity, and it boils down to the number 1. We have a system of single citizenship. What does that mean? It means you are a citizen of India, that's it. You're not a citizen of Maharashtra or a citizen of Tamil Nadu. In India, there's only one kind of citizen, and that's an Indian citizen. So let me leave you with this final question to ponder. How does a nation's day 1 definition of who belongs, how does that shape its identity for all the generations that follow? The choices made on that first day, they're not just about solving a problem then and there. They cast a really long shadow, influencing everything from law to politics to how country sees itself. It's something to think about.